Welcome back, everyone. Today we are shining a light on a problem that quietly chips away at margins in almost every logistic company: billing errors and mischarges. It's not the flashiest topic, but let's be honest, this is where a lot of money leaks out. With me today is Wolfgang Lamarcker, a global thought leader in the supply chain world. Thanks for joining, Wolfgang.
Thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. So now let's start with the reality check. We all know billing is not perfect, yeah? But how big is the problem with the manual errors and mischarges in the billing process, and why?
The problem is big, and more important, it is persistent.
Yeah.
Big means there are estimates that about 20-25% of invoices in the logistics industries are in some way or form incorrect. And why is it persistent? It is persistent because when I started my management career in the early 90s, we already had programs to protect revenue. And we
Mhm.
were a system driven company, meaning we had IT systems that were pretty powerful. But the problem was that we had paper, we got paper from the clients, we had people that keyed in the information, and as statistics show us about 60% of the errors in um, invoices result from manual data inputs.
Mhm.
And then there are, of course, system glitches, fragmented landscapes of IT infrastructure that contribute to the problem. Uh, there is probably a lot of money to make by tightening internal processes to protect ourselves, but also our partners and customers. So the direct costs are resulting from lost revenue, the effort we need to put in to get it right. But also, we have downstream effects like unhappy customers, unhappy suppliers, delayed payments, cash flow issues, and even compliance issues can arise.
Yeah. So actually, that's like really eye-opening, and I can say like these errors, this usually not like some kind of big errors that you see right away. So usually this is like really compound effect, small ones, yes, that you never get caught like every time once you're checking the invoice, and there are lots of areas there. These kind of mistakes can appear, and you just mentioned them, and this is like something that the company, I believe, like waste a lot of time in checking out all of this. So that is why let's zoom in into the invoices process itself. Then things go wrong. Where do they go wrong? Yeah. How often these kind of discrepancies arise in the invoicing process due to like incorrect rates, missing lines, or maybe some kind of tax errors?
The statistics on errors due to manual processes, paper-based invoices, indicate that we are talking in average about 10% of invoices that are wrong. And that's massive. The most common issue are freight rate mismatches. That means the invoice doesn't correspond to the offer, to the
Mhm.
prices that had been agreed. A solution is, of course, automation. You can bring these 10%, which is in fact the range between 8 and 15, you can bring this down to 1 to 2%. Uh, Tax calculation errors and
Mhm.
misapplied discounts cause about 5 to 10% of the invoice issue, um, meaning it's also a big portion. And yeah, I think that the frequency is daily. We have daily errors on invoicing, and that the consequences are very often hidden. You don't see them. because they are much more downstream. They are much more in the costs, which are not so obvious, mostly seen by finance.
Wolfgang, I actually completely agree with what you were saying regarding this kind of mistakes, and especially with the last part of your phrase regarding like all these mistakes usually come out at the end of the process, usually at the end clients or partners, and that is why it's like raise dissatisfaction with the corporation, and that is why I believe this is like one of the biggest issues that we currently have with the billing process and invoicing. So that is why moving forward, we just highlighted several of mistakes that like usually appear in the logistics industry. Wolfgang, maybe you can add up a little bit more of the common mistakes that still are also in this space in the logistics.
There is quite a list of very common mistakes, sources of errors. Um, it starts with the incorrect weight and dimensions. And that also indicates that we are looking at a process. We are looking at uh, how, at the value chain, how things are transported and move from one step to the other. So you get information about weight and dimensions, but when the shipment arrives, it should be checked, and technology can do this. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
then there is the problem of rounding errors and overcharging, undercharging. Another challenge, as we all know, is the master data addresses. Addresses are probably a graveyard of errors,
Yeah.
and that causes that invoices are just not received by the people that should pay them. This leads to delayed payments, also to disputes. Then there are freight term um, errors, prepaid and collect. Uh, Much more often occurs duplicate
Mhm.
billing, that things are billed twice, or more than that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
then there is the challenge with discounts and surcharges. That's probably a big chunk and playing field of discrepancies between what should be invoiced and what is invoiced. And then there are the rebates that sometimes are not given. And that all shows that it is all along the process that these errors are created.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Actually, yes. So there are lots of these kind of mistakes could appear in this like pretty long process of the our like logistics and supply chain, and that is why even we can speak just about like currency conversion mistakes, for example, for the international shipments. So this is also like I believe could be like pretty great portion of the mistakes that appear during this process, and this kind of let's say mistakes could be usually like overlooked. And as I mentioned, this is not like really, as we mentioned before, yeah, this is not like some kind of big huge mistakes that you see like right away. Yeah, this is some smalls that usually bring some confusion, misunderstanding, and time that they need to spend to checking out. And actually speaking about the time, yeah, so we were like mentioning that this is like pretty time consuming to catch all of these mistakes during the review of the process, and the time is always money. Yeah, how much time does a team typically spend on reviewing and correcting the invoices each week, let's say, yeah, and what's the hidden costs of that?
There are indications that a team usually spends 4 to 8 hours per week on error correction. That's about 10 to 20% of the time. Manual errors require accountants to dedicate 30% of their time correcting mistakes. So 1/3 of what you pay for your accounts receivable team is in fact spent on billing errors and rectifying and dealing with customers, which is another big thing. All these errors create a lot of interactions with suppliers and customers. And also, we have to see the direct cost, which are about the 50 to 60 US dollars per correction of an invoice. And then what I said before, all the long tail, all what happens from what I mentioned, discussions, cost for discussions with partners, down to compliance risks.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, this is like the main part, and I believe like 30 or 1/3%, like 1/3 part of the work that the accountant is doing. This is like, I believe, pretty big amount of hours that they spend on this task, and that is why the companies need to pay attention to this. And usually, this is like really under discussed and the managed part of the process that there is in the companies, and that is why there is this kind of leakage in the money, decrease in the margins. So this is like everything that pile ups and adds into the under receiving of the revenue for the companies. And of course, as you mentioned, a decrease in the cooperation satisfaction between the suppliers, partners, and all the stuff. Yeah. So actually, we understand right now that this is like a pretty big issue, and what actually companies can do yet to clean this up without like burning out their billing teams. What tools maybe or audit methods can companies use to reconcile billing more accurately and efficiently?
Yeah, those who know me, they know already the answer, because it is all about digitalization. It's all about bringing this into the digital space, is meaning that we digital twin the whole process. And it starts with getting the data or getting the information from our clients and from our suppliers in digital form, because that allows us to compare very efficiently. It also avoids that we lose paper along the way. And there is a typical three-way matching process when we talk about billing and billing accuracy. There is, what is the original agreement? Very often, this is a purchase order. And then what is received? So, what has really happened? When we get information, for example, from a client about, I will send you 10 shipments, 10 kilo each,
Mm-hmm.
with those dimensions, then we need to check through weighing, through scanners to check dimensions, um, or through barcodes or QR codes that we read. But we need to check whether the reality matches what has been announced. And then there
Yes.
is the third element, which is the invoice. And all this means that you put your offers, your proposal into the system, so that we don't have a mismatch between what prices were offered and what was built. It means that your whole operations process has to check that everything is in accordance with the agreement. And also, the process has to be so transparent that when we don't deliver something, when we are late, when we return, that all this is also covered and factored into the billing process through rebates, through fees that occur,
Mm-hmm.
or surcharges that occur. So it is the entire process that needs to be digitized, and then through this three-way matching, we get our hands around it. Then there is the whole topic of audits. It's good to trust the systems, but it's also good to have systems that audit the systems, and to do that in a collaborative way, together with suppliers, together with customers. This is, by the way, also a source of cost, because if we make too many invoice errors, customers will run audits on us, and this is a very expensive exercise. And when we do audits ourselves, we should not look only at the total amount, we should look at the individual items. So I'm talking about line item audits. Then there are mechanisms to alert us because nothing is perfect. Also, the systems are not. But we can put another layer on that send alerts if something is not right. And then maybe the last thing to look at is the real thing, which is the money on the bank. So when we have done our three-way matching, the last step is to look at the bank statements and see what is happening there, and does that match the whole story that happened before. And this is probably my end of the story, that if you have done this all right, you are matching and constantly checking from the proposals to the business process down to the payment, then you have probably set up a very robust operational and administrative process that gives you a competitive advantage and a very good foundation for growth.
That's actually so helpful what you just mentioned regarding like the automation. So this is really helps to build like some kind of guardrail trails that can catch all the errors, and especially if you have like different layers to set up like this way three-way matching process that you just highlighted really helps to catch as much of potential errors, mistake as possible. And this kind of alerts layer, this is something that really helps to highlight what's happening not okay, what not right, and what you need to do, where you need to check. So this is something that really help to see these errors, and even before they go out of the door, let's say, to the end, to the suppliers, to the partners. So thank you, Wolfgang, very much for working us through this. Billing is not usually like get the spotlight, but the impact of it has like really big on the company's bottom line, I believe, like every company in the logistics space. And to everyone listening, if this episode is made you think on your own billing process, maybe it's time for a quick audit. You might be surprised what you find out there. If you found this episode valuable, consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with the colleagues in the financial and the operations who manage their invoicing and reconciliation every day. Until the next time, stay proactive, monitor the details, and protect your margins.
My pleasure.